Welcome everyone to another topic for the adolescence period, the socio-emotional development in adolescence, entitled Moving into the Adult Social World. Okay, so how do adolescents achieve an identity? So, alam naman natin na ang adolescence period, ito talaga yung period na kung saan ay binibuild or dinidevelop natin, no? Hinahanap natin yung ating mga identity. Yan. So, according nga kay Eric Erickson, this is the time wherein we are trying to resolve the conflict between identity versus role confusion. So, let's take a look on the following statuses, no? This is according to James Marcia. Yan, the task for adolescents is to find an identity, a search that typically involves four statuses. Yan, so we have diffusion and foreclosure. Ito yung status na common sa early adolescence. And then moratorium and achievement sa late adolescence and young adulthood naman. So merong apat. Okay, so diffusion, foreclosure, moratorium, and achievement. As they seek identity, adolescents often believe that others are always watching them and that no one else has felt as they do. So parang lahat nakatingin sa ating ginagawa na para bang tayo lang yung nakakaramdam nun, no? Na tayo lang yung nakaka-experience ng mga bagay na ito. Yan. Adolescents are more likely to achieve identity when parents encourage discussion and recognize their autonomy. So, malaking bagay na engaged ang magulang, no, sa mga adolescents or sa mga teenagers sa pagdating sa kanilang mga endeavors, no, sa buhay. Kumbaga, maganda yung parenting na wherein they are authoritative over their children, wherein they can discuss their thoughts and feelings towards their parents. Yan, kasi na-open nila yung kanilang mga sarili sa kanilang parents with no judgment. And of course, mahalaga din na nare-recognize yung kanilang individuality as a person, no? Yung kanilang autonomy, para mawala na doon sa dependency period, no, na common sa children. So dahil nga papunta na sa adulthood, so dapat nire-recognize natin na sila ay kailangan din nila maging autonomous o tumayo sa mga sarili nilang paa. Okay, so as we continue for the search for identity, here are the four concepts that we need to understand in the adolescence period. So first, adolescents are egocentric in a way, no? As I've said before on our previous slides, children are egocentric in a way na they cannot see yet, no, the other person's perspective, kaya egocentric sila. Isa lang yung, kumbaga yung perspective lang nila, yung nakikita nila at naiintindihan nila. Pero ang adolescent, egocentric din siya, pero in a way na alam naman niya, no, meron na siyang perspective taking. Kumbaga nakikita niya rin yung perspective ng iba. Pero ipipilit niya, no, dahil sa sobrang absorption niya sa sarili niya, pipilit niya yung sa alam niyang tama or yung sa nakikita niya o yung sarili niyang pananaw without taking into account that the other perspective might be correct. Okay? Kaya adolescent egocentrism. Yan. Kaya talagang meron silang parang pinaglalaban lagi, no? Meron silang katwiran sa lahat ng bagay. Yan. So, in a way kasi, egocentric sila sa ganong paraan. Imaginary audience. Sa imaginary audience, ito yung feeling na feeling nila lagi silang minamatyagan or lahat ng tao sa paligid nila ay pinapanood sila. Kaya parang meron silang imaginary audience. Yan. Siguro in a way, kaya siguro sila conscious sa kanilang mga itsura, no, sa kanilang mga kilos ay dahil meron silang imaginary audience na thinking and feeling na everybody is watching them. Okay? And then personal fable naman, ito yung parang sa palagay nila yung experience nila ay unique, no, sa kanila lang. Kumbaga parang hindi mo ako naiintindihan kasi hindi mo pa 'to nararanasan. So parang may gano'n silang belief, no, or attitude na wag kang magsalita or wag kang mag-comment, no, tungkol sa nararamdaman o na-experience nila kasi nga meron silang pakiramdam or belief na unique sa kanila yung ganoong experience, no, na parang sila lang yung nakaka-experience nun first hand. Yan, kaya personal fable. Yung pang-apat, illusion of invulnerability. Ayan, this explains why they are risk takers, no? Kumbaga parang, ay, hindi to mangyayari sa akin, invulnerable ako. Hindi, hindi, hindi yan mangyayari sa akin yung mga bad luck na ganyan or misfortune, no? Halimbawa, sa mag-boyfriend, girlfriend, no? Dahil ngayon nga mapusok sila, no? They are risk takers also. They engage in risky behavior such as sex. Um, Hindi sumasagi sa isip nila na pwede silang mapahamak sa gagawin nila kasi nga meron silang illusion of invulnerability na huwag ka maniwala diyan, hindi mangyayari sa atin yung nangyari sa kanila. So parang may ganun silang thinking. Okay? Okay, so ito yung characteristics of adolescents thinking that I have mentioned a while ago, no, yung adolescent egocentrism, imaginary audience, personal fable, at illusion of invulnerability. So ito yung definition niya, yung nasa gitna na column, and then yung example. So let's take a look, no, doon sa mga example. So for example, sa adolescent egocentrism, wherein the adolescents are overly concerned with their own thoughts and feelings, di ba? Yung absorb nila yung kanilang mga sarili, na ibig sabihin, meron silang say sa lahat ng bagay or ang nakikita lang nila na tama is yung nakikita lang nila. Although alam din nila na may ibang paliwanag or may ibang pananaw yung ibang tao, pero for them, ipipilit nila kung ano yung sa tingin nila ay nakikita nila. So when Levi's grandmother died unexpectedly, Levi was preoccupied with how the funeral affect his weekend plans and ignored how upset his mother was by her own mother's death. So kung ito, si Levi, talaga namang very self-absorption yung nangyayari, egocentric siya in a way na mas iniintindi niya lang yung sarili niya na nasira yung mga plano niya this weekend because of the uh, yung burol siguro, no, na kailangan niyang umattend. So, without thinking and also ignoring the fact na yung nanay niya is upset, no, na dapat niyang intindihin at unawain din. Okay? So, ganyan yung mga thinking ng almost all adolescents. Imaginary audience, adolescents believe that others are watching them constantly. So, parang pakiramdam nila lahat ay nakatingin, no, sa kanila. So Tom had to ride his bike to football practice because his dad wouldn't let him have the car. He was sure that all his car driving friends would see and make fun of him. Ayan. So dito makikita niyo sa example na parang feeling niya na sa kanya nakatingin yung kanyang mga friends, no, na ay wala siyang car, no, naka-bike lang siya. So parang in a way na puwede namang hindi sa kanya nakatingin or puwedeng okey lang naman 'no, sa mga friends niya na wala siyang car. So, imaginary audience. Personal fable, adolescents believe that their experiences and feelings are unique, 'no, na sila lang yung nakaka-experience nun. So, when Rosa's boyfriend decided to date another girl, Rosa cried and cried. She couldn't believe how sad she was and she was sure her mom had never felt this way. So, parang hindi mo 'to naramdaman 'no, wala kang alam sa nararamdaman ko. So, parang gano'n yung tema 'no ng, paniniwala or pag-iisip 'no ng isang adolescent na merong personal fable. And of course, the illusion in vulnerability na inisip nila na hindi mangyayari sa kanila yung misfortune na nangyari sa ibang tao. Tulad halimbawa nitong, dalawang, mag-boyfriend-girlfriend na yun nga na gusto na makipagtalik ng boyfriend niya kaya lang ayaw ng girlfriend niya kasi nga nabalitaan nila na nabuntis si ganito, no, yung kakilala nila, same age siguro sa kanila. And then yun nga, ina-assure siya ng boyfriend na don't worry, huwag kang mag-alala, hindi yun mangyayari sa atin. Parang ako bahala, ganyan. So may mga ganong instances na nangyayari sa isang adolescent. Of course, these are all normal. No, it's not uh, hindi naman siya masama or negative, yun nga lang, kumbaga parang normal siyang nangyari because it's part of the thinking, no? Development of our thinking processes. Yan. So, what is important is that we acknowledge them, no? As a parent siguro na para masubaybayan natin sila, knowing na ganito sila mag-isip, no? Ganito yung kanilang characteristic ng pag-iisip. So, mag-guide natin sila na sa paano ba dapat, no? Ano ba dapat yung mga tamang pag-iisip para makapag-arrive tayo sa tamang solusyon. Okay, so dito makikita natin yung mga researches, no, sa mga adolescents. Ayan, so sinasabi dito na yung bang imaginary audience and yung sense of uniqueness or personal fable, isa ba yun sa pwedeng dahilan kung bakit yung mga teenager ngayon ay drawn sila sa social media, no, gusto nila nagpo-post sila, lahat pino-post nila, yung private lives nila. They want to gain likes and subscriptions. Dahil ba yun doon? Okay, yun nga, yung imaginary audience. Ayan. And then, according din to Sykester Incorporated 2010, amassing a large number of friends, no, yung or audience may help to validate their adolescents' perception that their life is on stage and everyone is watching them. So parang, in a way, uh, they want to seek for this parang yun nga na lahat nakatingin sa kanila, ino-observe sila. That's why very ano sila no, yung kung ano yung pino-post nila. They're mindful of what they post. And some of them are not mindful, no? But kahit ano na lang pino-post nila because they think na syempre nakaka-boost siguro yon ng kanilang self-esteem. At the same time, nakaka-build din ng kanilang development ng kanilang identity of who they are. Kasi nga hinahanap pa nila eh. Hinahanap pa nila kung sino sila sa mundong ito, no? Kumbaga, ano ba yung gusto ko, saan ako magaling, ganyan. So, importante rin yung sinasabi ng ibang tao sa akin para mag-build yung aking self-confidence and self-esteem. And greater use of social networking sites was linked to a higher level of narcissism. Ayan, marami ng ganitong study, no, kung talaga bang yung social networking ay ibig sabihin ba no, narcissistic yung tao na yun dahil gusto niya na may mga nagla-like sa post niya or whatever. Um, yeah, it can be in a form of narcissism, but it doesn't mean na the person is having narcissistic personality disorder, no? Kumbaga, isa yun sa mga karakteristik kasi ng narcissism, no? Yung parang love of self o yung parang gusto mo na sa'yo ang focus, no? Na ikaw yung ina-appreciate ng marami, na parang in a way na nag, nagbibigay ito sa'yo ng pleasure on your part and parang in a way na pinapahalagahan ka as a person and in that way, pinapahalagahan mo rin yung sarili mo. Well, on a positive note, okay yun, no? Kung ang goal naman is to have your self-identity and to increase your self-esteem. Pero in a negative note naman, syempre kapag too much, lahat naman ng sobra ay masama. So, hindi rin maganda na mag-lead ito sa disorder, no, na narcissistic na sinasabi. Pero if balance naman or if um, for a positive goal naman siya, why not? No, why not? There is nothing wrong with posting or expressing yourself in the social media as long as siguro balance lang and then alam mo pa rin yung limitations mo as a person as long as wala kang natatapakang iba, no? Wala kang naapektuhan or nasasaktan, di ba? You're not harmful to anyone and also to yourself, then that's okay. I think that is okay. That is not a form of narcissistic, no, or narcissistic personality or what. Okay, so here are the different pieces of identity. So we have vocational or career identity, political identity, religious identity, relationship, achievement or intellectual identity, sexual identity, gender, cultural or ethnic identity, interest identity, personality, and physical identity. Okay, so yung mga pieces of identity na yan ay unti-unti nating dinedevelop during the adolescence period. So, hindi yan pare-pareho na na-achieve agad. No, some of them are in foreclosure, some of them are still in diffusion, and some are in moratorium, and others are achieved already. So, tingnan natin kung ano-ano ba yung mga four statuses ng identity with regards to pieces of identity. Okay, so, Identity Statuses and Development by James Marcia. So, meron siyang tinatawag na crisis and commitment. So, dun sa mga identity status, there will be times na may crisis. Ibig sabihin nun, meron kang pagpipilian at meron ding commitment. Ibig sabihin nito, meron ka ng napili. Ayan. So, in each and every status ng identity, according to James Marcia, merong nangyayari either absent or present yung crisis o yung commitment. Okay, so let's take a look on the four statuses. Ayan, so ito yung Marcia's four identity statuses. Diffusion, foreclosure, moratorium, and achievement. So, tingnan natin yung definition niyan, no, nila, yung nasa gitnang column, and then sa last column is the examples. Yan. So, diffusion. Pag sinabing diffusion, ito yung pinakaunang status, no, na kinabibilangan ng mga, siguro ng mga nasa early adolescence period pa lang. No, the individual is overwhelmed by the task of achieving an identity and does little to accomplish the task. Ibig sabihin, wala pa siyang masyadong pinagpipilian, no? Wala siyang crisis pa na kinakaharap, no? And dahil walang crisis, walang pagpipilian, wala ring commitment, no? Diffuse pa eh. Kumbaga maraming alternatives pero hindi pa niya nakikita yon na mga alternatives. Okay, so example nito ay Larry hates the idea of deciding what to do with his future, so he spends most of his free time playing video games. Yan. So, ayun, walang crisis, walang mga alternatives to choose from, wala ring commitment. Okay, so diffusion. Pangalawa is the foreclosure. The individual has a status determined by adults rather than by personal exploration. So dito, wala rin siyang crisis. Walang mga options to consider or to choose from. However, meron nang napili para sa kanya yung kanyang mga significant others like parents, no? Kaya foreclosure, para bang sinadya, no? Para bang binigyan na sila ng option na they will invest themselves already or commitment. Yan. So dito may commitment pero walang crisis. Yeah, so for as long as she can remember, Sakura's parents told her that she should be an attorney and join the family law firm. She plans to study pre-law in college, though she's never given the matter much thought. So parang, in a way, meron na kagad na binigay sa kanya na something to be committed, no? Na, ito yung kukunin mo, ito yung gagawin mo. Pero, hindi ibig sabihin na yun yung pinili niya. Kaya foreclosure. Yan. So, Next status is the moratorium. Dito, may crisis. Yan. The individual is examining different alternatives but has yet to find one that is satisfactory. So, walang commitment pero may crisis. Kaya marami siyang sinusubukan, marami tinatry, no? Risky man o hindi. So, lahat tinatry nila. Okay, moratorium. Kasi nga, ito yung panahon na maraming alternatives or maraming choices. So, wala siyang isang bagay na talagang he or she is committed. No? Or yung para bang, napili ko na to. So, kahit may dumating na iba, hindi na ako titingin. So, parang gano'n, no? Yung moratorium. So, dahil nga wala pa siyang napipili, so, lahat, tinatry niya, lahat sinusubukan niyang gawin. Yan, or pasukin, no? Moratorium yan. And then sa achievement, ito, of course, there is crisis, maraming alternatives, pero may commitment na, no? Kumbaga, parang kabaligtaran to ng diffusion na wala kahit ano, no? Walang crisis, walang commitment, pero dito, sa achievement, merong crisis, meron din namang commitment. So, kahit na maraming ilatag na alternatives or options sa kanya, meron na siyang napili na something na he or she can be committed, okay? Na mag-i-invest siya ng kanyang personal uh, aspects, okay? So, yan yung achievement. So, halimbawa, sa pieces of identity, in terms of gender, no? So, dahil kahit madaming uh, kinds of gender or maraming, halimbawa, maraming let's say, sa sexual orientation, di ba? Kung noong una, confused ka pa kung ano pa talaga gusto mo, babae o lalaki, lesbian or gay. Pero ngayon, nakapili ka na kung ano talaga yung sexual orientation mo. So, ganun yung achievement. Okay? Kadalasan yung foreclosure, nangyayari yan kapag halimbawa yung nasa course ka, no, na ayaw mo. Kasi siguro, nung time na yun, uh, wala ka masyadong choices or alternatives na nakalatag. Pero someone from the family, like malamang your parents, sila yung pumili sa'yo nung course na yun. So, maaring nasa foreclosure stage ka pagdating sa, or status, pagdating sa academic or intellectual. Yan. Pagdating naman sa, halimbawa sa religion, no, kadalasan, we are in, let's say, moratorium, no? Kumbaga parang maraming choices, no? May born again, Iglesia ni Cristo, Catholic, ganyan. And then you are jumping from one religion to another religion, no? And then you are not yet committed. Kasi nga parang tinatry mo pa kung ano ba yung parang swak sa mga paniniwala mo, no? Or beliefs. Yan. So, moratorium ka pagdating sa religion kapag wala kang talaga isa na committed ka. Yan. So, yun. These are the 4 identity statuses according to James Marcia. Okay, so ito yung sinasabi ko, no, na yung absence and presence ng crisis and commitment, kung ano yung, saan siya magpo-fall na status, no, of identity. So, ayun nga, kapag sa diffusion, parehong absent. Wala yung crisis, walang commitment. Kaya, wala siyang napipili. Wala rin siyang ginagawa. No? Kung ano lang yung gusto niya. Yan, diffuse pa. Sa identity foreclosure, ayan, meron ng pinili para sa kanya, pero hindi siya yung pumili nun kasi nga wala namang crisis na nangyayari sa kanya, no? Wala siyang pinagpipilian, pero may pumili na para sa kanya. Sa identity moratorium naman, present yung crisis, of course, maraming pagpipilian, may mga alternatives, pero walang commitment. Ayan, so wala siyang pinipili. Lahat sinusubukan niya. And then sa identity achievement, parehong present. Kahit may crisis, there are many alternatives present, but there is already a commitment on that part. So, yan yung Marcia's 4 status of identity. Okay, so in terms of ethnic identity naman, what are the stages and results of acquiring an ethnic identity? So ethnic identity is the feeling of belonging to a specific ethnic group. Yan. Adolescents from ethnic groups often progress through three phases. No? Ito yung initial disinterest. Kumbaga, wala siyang pakialam pa kung anong ethnic niya, kung ano yung kanyang group no, na kinabibilangan. Exploration, ito yung ina-explore na niya yung mga cultures, beliefs, traditions nung culture or ethnic na kinabibilangan niya. And identity achievement or kahit na maraming pagpipilian, no? Halimbawa, siya ay African American, no? Kumbaga kahit na American siya, pero dahil na-explore niya rin yung culture ng pagiging African, well, mas pinipili niya no, na manatili sa mga culture, beliefs, traditions ng pagiging African. So parang ganun. Okay? So achieving an ethnic identity usually results in higher self-esteem, but is not consistently related to the strength of one's identification with mainstream culture. So sinasabi dito na kapag kilala mo kung sino ka, no, alam mo yung pinanggalingan mo, Asian ka man or African or Hispanic or Latina, um, tumataas yung self-esteem kapag tanggap mo no na kumbaga achieve mo yung identity mo in terms of ethnicity. Okay? So, sabi dito, meron dito example, one adolescent girl, a 16-year-old Michelle Chin. So, si Michelle Chin ay isang Asian, no, Chinese, yan, American, made these comments about ethnic identity development. Sabi niya, my parents do not understand that teenagers need to find out who they are, which means a lot of experimenting, a lot of mood swings, a lot of emotions and awkwardness. Like any teenager, I am facing an identity crisis. I'm still trying to figure out whether I am a Chinese American or an American with Asian eyes. So parang gano'n, no? Nalilito pa siya, nako-confuse siya kasi nga based din sa society na kinabimbilangan niya, maaaring may stereotypes pagdating sa mga Chinese or Asian people, no? Kaya nakakadagdag din yon ng kanyang confusion. Yan, sa pagtanggap ng kanyang ethnic identity. How does self-esteem change in adolescence? Social comparisons begin anew. The children move from elementary school to middle or junior high school. Consequently, self-esteem usually declines somewhat during this transition. However, self-esteem begins to rise in middle and late adolescence as teenagers see themselves acquiring more adult skills and responsibilities. So, ibig sabihin, ang self-esteem ay fluctuating, hindi siya stable, unlike personality na somewhat stable and consistent. Ang self-esteem kasi nagva-vary siya. 'Di ba sabi nga natin sa middle childhood, doon siya unang nade-develop, no, sa pag-acquire ng mga skills at competence. Pero pagdating naman sa adolescence, since dito nako-compare na sila sa kanilang mga peers, no, in terms of physical appearance or yung kanilang kayang gawin, skills and talents, mas lalong dito naman bumababa, no, yung kanilang self-esteem. So, self-esteem is linked to adolescents' actual competence, yung talagang kaya nilang gawin, no, in domains that matter to them, and is also linked to how parents and peers view them. Halimbawa, kaya naman talaga nilang gumawa nito, no, likas silang magaling na singer or magaling kumanta, magaling mag-drawing, pero yung mga magulang nila o yung mga kaibigan nila, hindi naman yun na nare-recognize sa kanila or hindi na-appreciate. So, kahit na kaya nila yung gawin, no, competent sila sa bagay na yon, pero hindi sila nare-recognize or hindi sila na-appreciate ng someone na they love, then bumababa pa rin yung kanilang self-esteem. The parent-child relationship becomes more egalitarian. Ibig sabihin nun, kumbaga parang nagiging equal, no? Nag-a-assert na sila ng kanilang independence na, ma, pa, kaya ko din tong gawin mag-isa. Hindi ko na kailangan ng help ninyo or I do not want to be dependent on you. So, in a way, it reflects adolescents' growing independence. Contrary to myth, adolescence is not usually a period of storm and stress. Yan. Most adolescents love their parents, feel loved by them, rely on them for advice, and adopt their values. No? Kumbaga parang meron ng myth na adolescence, naku, panahon niya ng rebellion, panahon niya ng bagyo, no? Ng stress, magulo yan, chaotic. Pero ang totoo nun, yun nga, maaaring naghahanap sila na atensyon, ng pagmamahal, no? Most of the time, kapag okay naman yung parenting, like authoritative yung parenting, um, they feel loved, no? They feel loved and they rely on them for advice. Romantic relationships and sexuality. So adolescence is a time of sexual exploration and experimentation, of sexual fantasies and realities, of incorporating sexuality into one's identity. Sabi nga ni Freud, no, this is the reawakening of our sexual drives or our sexual instincts. No? So let's take a look on how teenagers, adolescents view sexuality and how is it part of our identity. Okay? So, since adolescent is the time for sexual reawakening, this is also the time that we develop our sexual identity. So, how is it? No? Paano nga ba ito nade-develop sa mga kabataan? So, it involves learning to manage sexual feelings, no? Dahil nga, since the time of puberty, no? When puberty kicks in, the sexual characteristics, the primary and secondary develops. Doon nagkakaroon tayo ng mga sexual feelings, no? Nagkakaroon tayo ng attraction towards the opposite or same sex. Yan, kaya may mga sexual orientation also. Yan, developing new forms of intimacy to our counterparts and learning how to regulate these sexual behaviors. So sexual behavior involves kissing, holding hands, no, and other forms of sexual behaviors. An adolescent sexual identity involves activities, interests, styles, and an indication of sexual orientation, no? Whether to what sex are you attracted to? Yeah, is it the same sex or the opposite sex? And also the timing of adolescent sexual behaviors, no? Sinasabi dito sa research from 1991 to 2015 nag-drop down, no, yung mga sexual behaviors. So, is it from the start of the puberty or after, or yun nga, may mga kabataan na as early as 12, 13, yung iba naman 16, doon na sila nakakaranas ng sexual behaviors, nakakaramdam ng sexual feelings. Yan. So, it depends on the timing, no? Kung kailan sila uh, naunang or kailan nag-emerge yung feelings of sexuality or sexual attraction towards the other sex or the same sex. Okay? Okay. So for another research, no, according to Child Trends in 2015, in a national survey, 51% of US 15 to 19-year-old boys and 47% of girls in the same age range said that they had engaged in oral sex. Oral sex is one of the sexual behaviors aside from the vaginal or penis intercourse. We have oral sex, no? Using the mouth, yan. And then another research, according to Reese and others in 2013, they also found that among female adolescents who reported having vaginal sex first, 31% reported having a teen pregnancy. Whereas among those who initiated oral genital sex first, only 8% reported having a teen pregnancy. So, meaning to say, this implies, no, the research implies that um, if if the couple, no, the adolescent couple uses the penis or vaginal intercourse, then there's a high probability that they will get pregnant. Okay? Unlike using the mouth, no, that uh, like the oral genital sex, uh, it's less likely to get pregnant. So, thus, how adolescents initiate their sex lives may have positive or negative consequences for their sexual health. So, why do teenagers date? So sabi dito, romantic relationships emerge in mid-adolescence. Mid-adolescence meaning siguro mga nasa age range of 11, 12, 13, no? Somehow mga ganon, yung mga nag-start pa lang yung puberty. So doon nagkakaroon na sila ng interest or sexual feelings towards the other sex. And romantic, no? Willing to build romantic relationships. And for younger adolescents also, dating is for both, no, companionship and sexual exploration. So, meaning to say, yung purpose nila of dealing with romantic relationship is para daw meron silang kasama sa mga activities nila, sa mga interests nila, and also, dahil nga ito yung sexual awakening, dito rin nila ina-explore yung kanilang sexuality. Ayan. And then for older adolescents, perhaps it is a source of trust and support, no? Meaning, they have this other individual, the other person who is trusting and also the source of trust, no? They're confident, no, in any matters, and of course, the support system, one of the support system of a person. Adolescents in romantic relationships are more self-confident and but also report more emotional upheaval. So, self-confident in a way na, syempre, you're attracted to someone. Meaning, if you are attracted or you are, uh, someone courted you, meaning you are attractive. No, you are physically attractive, you are good-natured, you have a good character, a good personality, a nice person. So, somehow, it adds up to your self-esteem or self-confidence. And also, when you have conflict with your boyfriend or girlfriend, during that time when you are in a relationship, this is also the time of being emotional, 'di ba? So kapag nag-aaway kasi mas heightened yung emotion, no? Nagagalit tayo, we feel unsecured, we feel deceived, no? So somehow dito nagkakaroon ng emotional upheaval o mga ah, yung ating emotion ay grabe, no? Yung bang nagagalit, yung broken heartedness, no, na tinatawag, dito yon. Yan, dito yon nangyayari. So the following are researches in terms of risk factors in adolescent sexual behavior. Early sexual activity is linked with risky behaviors such as drug use, delinquency, and school-related problems. That is according to Boisbert, Boislarg, and Pauline, 2017, and Rivera and others in 2018. A recent study of Korean adolescent girls' early menarche was linked with earlier initiation of sexual intercourse. So that was the study from 2018 by Kim and others. So sinasabi dito, no, yung maaga daw na pagreregla ay isa rin sa mga dahilan, maaring dahilan or naka-influence sa maagang pakikipagtalik. Ayan. Other risk factors for sexual problems in adolescents include contextual factors such as socioeconomic status and poverty, immigration, ethnic minority status, family or parenting, and peer factors, and school-related influences. So, yan yung mga sinasabi nating contextual factors o mga pwedeng setting, no, na kung saan o nandun yung mga sitwasyon na kung saan naroroon ang isang adolescent, no, na possible na mag-engage siya sa early sexual activity because of those factors. Halimbawa, yung mga nasa mahirap na pamilya, yung mga immigrant, no? Kung ito ay usapin na sa foreigner, no? Nasa foreign country ka, ganyan. O kaya naman yung family mo, you're from broken family, separated parents, or pwede ring peer, no? Halimbawa, yung tropa mo, yung barkada nyo, lahat sila nakipag-sex na, ikaw na lang hindi. So, medyo may pressure, no, sa part mo. Maaring ganun. And other school-related influences. Yan. So, yan yung mga risk factors. Okay? Cognitive and personality factors are increasingly implicated in sexual risk-taking in adolescents. Ayan. So, sinasabi dito, no, yung pag-iisip, the way na kung paano tayo mag-isip, and also yung personality natin, yung traits na meron tayo. Like, for example, weak yung self-regulation mo. Ibig sabihin nun, you have difficulty to control your own emotion and behavior. and thus you are impulsive, no? So kapag impulsive at tapos weak pa yung self-regulation mo, so it is highly likely that you will also engage to earlier sexual activity. So yan yung mga iba't ibang researches, no, na connected sa ano ba yung mga pwedeng maging risk factor para tayo ay mag-engage sa sexual behavior during the adolescence period. Okay, so why are some adolescents sexually active and why do so few use contraceptives? So by the end of adolescence, most American boys and girls have had sexual intercourse, which boys view as recreational, but girls see as romantic. So ito naman ay US, no? US yung basis ng research na to. So we don't know if it is also applicable to the Filipino adolescents. Yan. So sinasabi lang dito na pagdating sa, yun nga, sa sexual intercourse, um, bakit nga ba active, no, yung mga bata o yung mga teenager? So probably number one, because of puberty, because of the sexual urge, desires, or instincts, no? And maybe then yung mga risk factors kanina na nabanggit can also contribute to why are some adolescents sexually active. And yon, sinasabi dito na yung mga boys daw, no, view nila o tinitingnan nila yung sexual intercourse by seeing it as a recreational. Recreational meaning it's part of a pleasurable or a leisure activity, no, that they do. But girls see it as a romantic relationship. Yan. So it involves emotions, feelings. Yan. Adolescents are more likely to be sexually active if they believe that their parents and peers approve of sex. Yan. So, kung pinopromote sa bahay, sa family, na okay lang, no? Very liberal, very progressive yung family or parents. And of course, the friends, no, yung barkada, they approve of it, then that's a high chance, no, na magkaroon talaga, na ma-engage talaga sa sexual intercourse. Adolescents do not use birth control consistently because they do not understand conception. Pwedeng di nila alam, pwedeng di nila naintindihan, naunawaan, ano nga ba ang pagko-conceive, no? Ano nga ba yung reproduction? Don't know where to obtain contraceptives. Yan. Saan makukuha nun? Saan mabibili nito? And sometimes find pregnancy appealing. Ayan. So, para in a way, natutukso, ganyan, or they are curious, no, what will happen next, or what will be the chances are, or how is it, no? Kaya, ganon. So, they are curious enough. So, yeah. Okay, so here are the various researches related to contraceptive use. Too many sexually active adolescents still do not use contraceptives. They use them inconsistently or use contraceptive methods that are less effective than others. So, marami kasi tayong klase ng contraceptive or contraception. So, why do we use contraception? First, we don't want to get pregnant, no, to control birth. Pangalawa, we don't want to get infected, 'di ba? Kasi nga yung mga STD can be contracted through sexual contact. Kaya gumagamit tayo ng mga contraceptive methods. So marami yan. We have pills, no, yung mga birth control pills, condoms, and implants also. So yan. So sabi dito sa research na to, hindi marami pa rin na mga sexually active na teenagers ang hindi gumagamit ng contraceptives. Or gumagamit man, pero hindi lagi, hindi madalas, no, paminsan-minsan lang. Or gumagamit sila ng mga contraceptive methods na hindi naman effective. No, hindi nila alam kung ano ba dapat ang gamitin. Birth control pill ba o condom? Ayan. So some forms of contraception, such as birth control pills or implants, do not protect against sexually transmitted infections or STIs. Kasi nga, they are contracted primarily through sexual contact, including the oral genital and anal genital contact. So in a single act of unprotected sex with an infected partner, a teenage girl has a 1% risk of getting HIV. Yan, kapag hindi protected, no? Especially if walang condom. 30% risk of acquiring genital herpes. Ang herpes kasi ay isang klase ng sugat doon sa may puwerta or doon sa outer organ. So, kapag nag-sex at yun ay nagkaroon ng physical contact, so malaki ang chance na makontract mo yung infection. And a 50% also chance of contracting gonorrhea. And another is chlamydia. Okay, so here are the other sexually transmitted diseases. So here are the features, no? The frequency, pero sa United States, yung kanyang basis, symptoms, and also the complications. So these are diseases that can be contracted through sexual contact, no? So these are caused by a bacteria. So we have chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. So chlamydia, 75% of women, 50% of men have no symptoms. Sometimes, abnormal discharge of pus from the vagina and penis or pain while urinating. So the complications are infections of the cervix and fallopian tubes that can lead to infertility. So these are very rare in men. So usually, mga babae po ang nagkakaroon ng chlamydia. Gonorrhea, often of symptoms at all. Pus discharge from the penis or vagina. Pain associated with urination. For women, pain during intercourse. For men, swollen testicles. So for complications, pelvic inflammatory disease, a serious infection of the female reproductive tract that can lead to infertility. In men, epididymitis, an infection of the testicles that can lead to infertility also. So that is gonorrhea. As for the syphilis, a sore called a chancre at the sites of the infection, usually the penis, vulva, or vagina. So the complications are, if left untreated, it can damage internal organs such as the brain, the nerves, eyes, heart, bones, and joints. As for the continuation of the sexually transmitted diseases, the following STDs are caused by virus. So we have genital herpes, at least 45 million of age 12 and older, roughly 1 in 5 adolescent and adults contracted. And for the symptoms, itching, burning or pain in the genital or anal areas, sores of the mouth, penis, or vagina. For the complications, recurrent sores. Pregnant women can pass the virus, which can be fatal to the newborn, to the baby during the birth. That's why they opted to choose cesarean section for pregnant women who has pregnant women who have genital herpes. Genital human papilloma virus or HPV, so 20 million prevalence. Usually no symptoms, sometimes genital warts or discharge from the penis or vagina. For the complication, it usually goes away. In rare cases, it leads to cervical cancer. Hepatitis B, about 75,000 annually. So the symptoms are jaundice, fatigue, loss of appetite, abdominal pain. As for the complications, death from chronic liver disease. And the last one is the HIV, about 40,000 diagnosed annually. Symptoms initially a flu-like illness, later enlarged lymph nodes, lack of energy, weight loss, and frequent fevers. And for the complication, loss of immune cells. Thus, it can lead to AIDS and cancer death. So the source for this is Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in 2007 and 2010. Okay, these are the researches in terms of the adolescent pregnancy. Adolescent pregnancy is another problematic outcome of sexuality. Aside from having STD, is also being pregnant, and also requires major efforts to reduce its occurrence. Adolescent pregnancy creates health risks for both the baby and the mother kasi nga the body is not yet ready to conceive, no? Especially for the young mothers as young as 11 or 12, hindi pa ganun ka-ready or ka-prepared yung katawan para mag-conceive, para manganak. So, kaya marami talagang pinopost na health risk. Adolescent mothers interact less effectively with their infants than do adult mothers. So, syempre dahil teenager pa, adolescent pa, hindi masyado pang marunong kung paano ba mag-interact sa kanilang mga baby, yung mga adolescent mother. No? They are still in the stage of development as well as their babies. No? Emotionally unstable, no? Socially unprepared. So, talagang meron siyang effect, okay, doon sa baby. Adolescents can benefit from age-appropriate family life education. So, family and consumer science educators teach life skills such as effective decision-making to adolescents. Kasi nga, since hindi pa sila ka-mature enough, no, to handle a family situation, much more to take the responsibility of taking care of the child, of the baby, hindi pa sila ganun ka-adept. Wala pa silang skills, mga life skills. So, there are programs or education that teach, no, life skills such as this, no, sa ating mga adolescent mothers. Yeah. What determines an adolescent sexual orientation? So, pag sinabi nating sexual orientation, this is to how or to what sex are you attracted with. Okay? So, if I, a female, no, have attraction or has attraction to another female, then my sexual orientation is homosexual. And if I am attracted to my opposite sex, which is male, then I am considered a heterosexual. So I have heterosexual orientation. So a small percentage of adolescents are attracted to members of their own sex. Attraction to same-sex individuals follows a different path in boys and girls. For boys, the first step involves feeling different and becoming interested in gender atypical activities. No? Kumbaga, interested siya sa mga activities na hindi according sa kanyang gender, which is male. In contrast, for girls, the first step often involves strong feeling toward one particular female. So, parang nagkakaroon kagad sila ng attraction, no? Parang merong, yun na, attraction towards the same female, no? Unlike sa boys, hindi pa naman ganun. Kumbaga, parang nafe-feel pa lang yan na parang iba. Parang mas gusto ko yung mga hindi pang boys na gawain, mga pang hindi pang boys na interest, ganyan. Pero sa girls, parang nauuna, no, na magkaroon sila ng strong feeling towards to another female. Yan. Gay and lesbian youth face many special challenges and thus often suffer from mental problems. No? Kasi nga, they are confused, they are still developing the identity, no? And gender, sexual orientation is part of the pieces of identity nila. So here are the guidelines to avoid date rape. So number one, know your own sexual policies. Decide when sexual intimacy is acceptable for you. So ano ba yung rules ninyo? Kung kayo ay mag-boyfriend, dapat alam nyo yung limitations. Ano lang yung pwede, ano yung hindi pwede. Communicate these policies openly and clearly. So, dapat i-communicate ninyo sa bawat isa. Masasabihin nyo loud and clear, verbally, kung ano yung mga hangganan. Avoid being alone with the person until you have communicated these policies and believe that you can trust the person. So, hanggat maaari, iwasan nyo na kayo lang dalawa. No? Unless, yun nga, kahit nga boyfriend mo siya, or girlfriend ka niya, mas maigi na meron kayong kasama, may chaperone, no? Avoid using alcohol or other drugs when you are with a person with whom you do not wish to become sexually intimate. Yan. Ito madalas natin tong sinasabi. No? Meron pa nga tayong kasabihan na pag may alak, may balak. Although hindi natin sinasabing yun ay totoo, at o kaya naman ay yun yung dahilan, sumama ka kasi alam mo nang magiinom, kumbaga, syempre, pini-prevent natin eh. Iniiwasan natin mangyari. So, kung alam mo na hindi mo gusto na siya ay magkaroon kayo ng sexual encounter, then avoid using alcohol or other drugs na might be interfering, no, with your consciousness. Kasi maiiba yung isip mo, 'di ba? Magiging groggy ka, hindi magiging malinaw ang iyong kaisipan sa mga oras na maaring magkaroon ng sexual assault. So hangga't maaari ay iwasan or uminom lang ng tamang amount, no? Huwag magpakalasing, huwag gumamit ng drugs na sa palagay mo ay maghahatid sa iyo mm, sa ibang dimensyon, no, ng consciousness para manatili kang gising at alerto anytime. Yan. If someone tries to force you to have sex, make your objectives or objections known. Okay? So, magsalita ka. Talk first, di ba? Ayoko yan. Ayoko ng ginagawa mo. Tigilan mo yan. Di ba? So, pwede mong i-assert kagad yung sarili mo. Hindi yung hindi ka magsasalita. But struggle and scream if necessary. So, kapag talagang ayaw pa rin tumigil sa kabila ng pag-awat mo, sa kabila ng iyong pakiusap, then pwede kang sumigaw para mag-caught ng atensyon ng ibang tao.